Can you catch it more than once? So Shelly, this is a really good question. I am not going to pretend to know an answer here, but I can say that the only way the human species, outside of a vaccine, the only way that the human species is going to develop immunity to this thing is through exposure and through infection. That's just kind of the way the system's going to work, right? We adapt to these things. So it's kind of like chickenpox. Chickenpox, we know you get it and you usually don't get it again. But then there's shingles, which is kind of like chickenpox, right? And people tend to get that as an adult. And then there's 4 other coronaviruses. There's cold and flu. I've had colds and I've had flus multiple times. The question right now isn't so much, can you catch it more than once? The question in my mind is, if you catch it once and recover, and then down the line catch it again, I would imagine you would be at a much lower risk of severe complications. This is 100% my hypothesis. I am pulling this out of my ass, everybody. I cannot stress to you enough that I am not a medical professional. I do not have a PhD in biochemistry like my friend Anthony J, who I've talked to. I am not a biologist. I've never studied infectious diseases. Understand this. This is not me. I am coming to you guys with 100% humility here. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, okay? So I'm just trying to share information with you guys. But this part right here doesn't come from anybody else but my little brain here. The way that I'm looking at this is not do you catch it once, do you catch it? If you catch it once, can you catch it again? I'm not looking at it that way. I'm looking at, if you are infected by this thing and recover fully and don't have severe complications, I would imagine that the next time, if you were to catch it again, if that is possible, might not be possible, but I would imagine that next time you would be at a lower risk of severe complications from this thing, okay? That's the way that I feel about it. Now, hopefully, I hope that it is like chickenpox. I hope that you get it once and you can never get it again. I hope you get it once, your body builds up an immunity, and this damn thing goes away, because this sucks, right? In theory, that is correct, Justin. Thank you, JB. I appreciate that. That's what I think is going to happen, in theory. Now, best case scenario, my hope, my wish, my dream for this thing, please pray to whatever higher power you believe in, is that if you get it once and recover, you can never get it again. But we do not know that for sure. I'm staying away from my father who has renal failure. Yes, renal failure is a really serious situation. There's a lot of previous things that are putting you at very high risk. So there's some graphs floating around. You can see like high blood pressure seems to be a huge one. Previous cancer diagnosis seems to be a huge one. Current smokers, off the charts risk. Previous smokers, still at a high risk. Again, we talked about the high HbA1c. High blood glucose levels seem to be problematic. That is the elderly and type 1 diabetics and type 2 diabetics. Big problem. So again, I get type 1 diabetics that come to me all the time like, I can't take your advice, Justin. I have to eat sugar. I have to eat candy bars or I'll go hypoglycemic. And I go, wow, you really don't understand biochemistry. I've worked with countless type 1 diabetics. Generally speaking, when I work with a type 1 diabetic from day 1 of Clovis to within 6 months of Clovis, I have reduced their daily insulin intake by 85%. That's what I do with type 1 diabetics, right? And I treat them very much the same, in the same way that I treat type 2 diabetics. This hypoglycemia thing is ridiculous. Just the body looking for energy. That's it. It's the body looking for energy. If you become hypoglycemic, you don't need to drink a bunch of sugar. You don't need to do that. Oh, it drives me crazy. Try taking some MCT oil, some C8 MCT oil. Take an exogenous ketone, right? Eat a little bit of sweet potato. I don't know. It's just ridiculous, you guys. But anyway, yes, so the other thing is kidney problems, previous kidney issues. That can be a really big risk factor for this thing. And the thing is, when I talk about risk factor, always know this, I'm still saying that like 80+% of people infected are not going to have a huge problem with this thing. But when I say high risk, I am saying high risk of complications from coronavirus. I'm not saying high risk of infection. We all are at risk of infection, all of us, because there is no innate immunity to this thing. It doesn't exist, right? So we are all at risk of infection. Odds are at this point, based on the data we have, we will all get this at some point. So understand that as well. So when I am using the words high risk, I am saying you are at high risk of complications due to coronavirus infection, right? Type 1 diabetics, type 2 diabetics, like they're at a higher risk of death from this thing. It's scary to say it that way, but that's the deal, right?